Sam. Call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and first item on the agenda is roll call.
Nyla Fry. Here.
Trisha Brown.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Kristen Runge.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
And Robert McPherson.
Here.
All right, next up is confirmation of open meeting compliance.
And I can confirm that the agendas were posted and published on
Tuesday. At all. 28th.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, public comment. Any public comment? Maria? No? Anyone online?
No.
All right, then we will go straight to the first business item, discuss and take action to opt in or opt out of the PFAS settlement agreements from 3M and DuPont related to the aqueous film forming foam product liability litigation, AFF multi-district litigation number 2873. And Tim, that's to you.
Thank you and good evening. I just want to say I really appreciate the board getting together here on short notice. This is a really fluid situation. There's a lot of communities that are dealing with this week, the last couple of weeks. And I really appreciate everybody coming together on short notice. Just quickly a background on this. There are two major PFAS manufacturers, 3M and DuPont, that are in the process of settling a class action lawsuit. For the 3M one is over 10 billion and the DuPont one is about 1. By default, we are in, or not by default, but we are included in the into the settlements. And we're here tonight to ask for your permission to opt out of the settlements. Just briefly on the memo that I distributed to the board. Just for some background, PFAS is found in a lot of things. It's probably found in my coat. It's found in grease, or it's found in wrappers at fast food stores. It's in carpeting. It's in a lot of things. And we are required to test for PFAS. And we're very fortunate because, well, first of all, the testing procedures have got to a point where the test can be done in parts per trillion. Okay, and I did a little homework and small amount. We tested for PFAS in 2022 at our 5 wells, and it came back as non-detect in all 5 wells, which is a really great situation for us. We tested again in 2023. 4 of the 5 wells came back as non-detect. Well 2, which is just down the road here on 8th and Century, came back at 0.52 parts per trillion. Okay. Somebody that analyzed that for us described that as between the level of detection and the level of quantification. Okay. So it could mean that there is a very small amount of PFAS in the system. It could mean that the lab didn't properly clean their equipment. I'm not saying the lab was wrong. I'm saying it could be a whole host of things. The bottom line is we're in a very good position because a lot of communities have PFAS that are real issues, and we don't. The payouts, the settlement includes a matrix that shows how you get paid out, and I included that in the packet. And just for some reference, on the left side is parts per trillion, and on the top is gallons per minute. Okay, so on the left side, it's 2 down to 1,000. Okay, we have 0.52 that was tested, and in the well that we're in question is about 1,000 gallons per minute. It's a little bit less than that. But if you try to extrapolate what the payout could be on this matrix, which is just the 3M payout, it's hard to quantify. If you tried to back into it, you could say 0.52 divided by 2 multiplied by 190,000 gets you $40,000. And we don't even know if that would actually happen. Okay. And because of that, I just want to kind of cut to the chase, but I guess one other thing I want to say is I also put a spreadsheet in there that shows like what some of the other communities are doing. And that was a spreadsheet that was created about 2 weeks ago, I think, from someone in a group, a statewide group that we're involved in. That has just basically polled different communities. And I'd say that based on that information and on information that we've received here in the last couple of days, the bottom line is that those communities that don't have much of a detect are deciding to opt out. Not all of them, but the majority of them are deciding to opt out. And if in summary here, if we stay in the settlement, there's a chance that we could get some money. We can't quantify what that amount is. It could be a very small amount. But when we do that, we're also waiving some rights in the future if down the line we detect more PFAS in the water. Okay. If we opt out, we preserve our right. We forego any potential money, but we preserve our right to potentially take legal action against PFAS manufacturers in the future in the very unlikely event that it becomes an issue to the community. So that's a lot of info. It's pretty technical. I know Brian Kleinmeyer is on the call. I don't know if he wants to chime in, but again, our recommendation is to opt out of the settlements. And I forgot to mention, the reason why we asked you all to be here tonight is because the opt-out notice for the DuPont settlement needs to be received by the court by December 4th. It has to be physically received there, which is next Monday. The 3M settlement has to physically be received by December 11th. So, Brian, anything to add?
I mean, I'm certainly willing to answer any questions. This is a unique situation, both from a timing perspective. I would say about, 3 weeks ago, the information was kind of, trickling out of a faucet. And the last 2 weeks, it seems to be coming out, pretty heavy. And so it's unfortunate that we had to have this special meeting, but I concur with Tim. Thank you for being willing to meet, because it just, from a timing perspective, we were not going to be able to take this up at a utility commission meeting prior to the one that it was addressed at. And then we weren't going to be able to take it up at the board meeting. This case is a little unique. Typically, municipalities do not opt out of class action lawsuits. Most of the time, they're kind of financially related, and the municipalities stay in and we get, a little bit of money. But I do agree with Tim that, for example, Mount Horeb has already opted out. Verona has opted out. And the rationale is the same that Tim explained, which is, yes, there may be a small payment that could be made to each of those municipalities. And I think Waunakee's in the same boat. But it's not worth waiving rights that we may have. And my understanding is part of the issue here is testing for PFAS is in its infancy. And so it may be the case that testing improves, let's say well, first of all, we hope that there's no PFAS and that this is all much ado about nothing. But it may be the case that testing improves to the point that 4 years from now, we're testing and we find stuff that isn't new. It's been there. It's there right now. We just couldn't find it. And that's the stuff that we would be waiving if we participated. And it's kind of a cost benefit analysis. It just doesn't seem to benefit the village to waive the rights that it would be waiving for such a small payment that it may receive under the settlement agreements. And so that's the rationale for the recommendation.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian. And thank you very much, Tim. What questions do we have for Tim and Brian? Any questions? Any discussion?
Sure, I'll go. Do we know if, or I guess, was it the same lab that did the testing in both years?
That I don't know, unfortunately. Okay. Sorry.
Robert, did you have a question?
Well, it's more for the Utilities Commission. So Trish and I had the same question. The comments from the Utilities Commission is that they didn't reach consensus. Can we have what happened at Utilities Commission?
Yeah, we had a lengthy discussion about it. Really, we were lacking a couple pieces of information, I think at the time. We didn't have a discussion of what would happen in the future if we did test. And it was a split decision. And so since the action would need to be taken by the board to opt out anyway, and this meeting would have been required even if they had some to opt out, we chose to boot it to the board basically. And we had people on both sides. Yes, go ahead. Brian.
I was going to say, one of the unique features of this settlement is it seems like a lot more municipalities are opting out. And we've kind of discussed some of the reasons for that. And, one of the reasons why you participate in a class action is because as the village of Waunakee, you don't want to take on 3M or DuPont by yourself. You want to do it with a group. I would say that if in the unfortunate circumstance that, you know, we find that we do have a PFAS issue in the future, because let's say the testing becomes much better, that's probably then going to apply to other municipalities similar to Waunakee. And I raise that from the standpoint of this might be one of the unique circumstances where if you opt out of this settlement and then circumstances change and you decide in the future that you do want to pursue some action because in fact you do think the damages are greater than what we believe they are right now, there may in fact be multiple other municipalities that the village would be able to join with in the future. So we wouldn't be in a situation where it would be Waunakee taking on a large corporation. There almost could technically be a second round of class action suits. Again, that's very speculative, depending a lot on the testing. But I raise that from the standpoint of in the future, if it turns out that the village does feel the need to seek some, you know, greater damages from these entities, we may still be able to join with other municipalities because so many have opted out in these suits.
Thank you, Brian. I'll say after the Utilities Commission met, I talked with a hydrology graduate student who researches PFAS and talked about kind of what's happening across the state. And given that we are in the situation where testing is in its infancy, we don't know where all the PFAS is. We have these very low levels now. We don't really gain much, but potentially a couple $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 from this. It seems the more conservative approach to just opt out and wait to make sure that we're going to protect our rights in the future should anything happen. I'm with Tim. I don't think there's going to be anything there. And that's the scenario we would all absolutely hope for. But this stuff is everywhere and it's forever. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if something does happen, we've at least preserved our rights. So that was my feeling on it. Yeah. Other questions?
Okay, now I have questions.
Yeah.
After hearing that. So I know that I did go out and look at the settlement. So you have to use Eurofins if you're a part of the settlement as a part of the testing process, right? So is that who we used originally to test our wells?
No, it was some labs in the state. I just don't remember. There's a couple labs we work with. I don't remember which one it was.
Okay.
Northern Lakes is one that comes to mind. I think that might have been it, but I don't know if they did it for both. I know the state lab of the state, it's coming back to me. I think that Northern Lakes labs did the testing for 23.
But if we accept this, if we stay in the settlement, if we want to prove our PFAS is eligible for some sort of compensation, Eurofins is the one that gets tested, if I'm reading this correctly, right?
Unfortunately, I don't know that. That may be a Brian question.
Okay. So fire department, we did talk about this because we have other municipalities there, and Niall, I don't know if you remember the conversation that we had. It was kind of off the cuff, but we did discuss, and I know it's represented in the memo. I think the fire department actually said they've never used anything with PFAS in it because it's too expensive for the fire department to get that foam to use. So we shouldn't have been generating anything from our fire department that would have been, you know, from that. I only say that because we're talking about the well that's right up the street from the fire department, but they swear that they don't have anything with any firefighting stuff with PFAS in it. So yeah, for what it's worth.
That's reassuring. That's good. Yeah. So any other discussion on it? Any other questions?
No, I think the points that have been made towards the recommendation are pretty solid. I really.
All right. Do we have a motion? I know I might are coming back. My computer's waking back up.
Actually, before we do that.
Okay.
Opt out of the class action
Settlements with DuPont and 3M.
Second.
In discussion on the motion, Joe, you had something.
The question I was going to ask is, should we separate them in any way? Should we have motions that are specific to each one?
If it's going to be a majority vote in favor, you don't. It's okay to have one motion that opts out of both of them.
Okay.
All right. Then a motion and a second have been made. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much. Tim.
A question to Brian, logistically getting the notices to the court, do we have that figured out?
Yes, we do. So, in fact, Waunakee's documentation will be, we're essentially doing two things, and multiple communities are doing this. So there's kind of a cost sharing that's going to occur. We've already contacted the most pressing is for Monday. We have a process server in Philadelphia ready to go. So we will be sending Waunakee, Verona, Mount Horeb, and I think 3 or 4 other opt-out documents via FedEx tomorrow, next day business, to get to the, it's actually not, doesn't go to a court. It goes to what's called a notice administrator. That's going, so technically it should get there via FedEx by Monday. But because we have such a tight deadline, we have also, we're also using the services of a process server in Philadelphia who on Monday will also hand deliver the documents. It's just, we're not going to do that for the 3M because we have plenty of time next week just to send the documents via essentially certified mail to the notice administrator and that. But we do have it set up for both claims to have the documents timely served. And there is going to be some cost savings for the village for Monday because we're going to be able to share the cost with some other municipalities.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for the hard work on this. I appreciate it, Tim. I appreciate it, Brian, and thank you, board, for coming in on such short notice.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, and we adjourn.